Big welcome to Control the Controllables' first ever live podcast. How are you doing? Everyone good? It's my first words actually are to say a big thank you to you all. You know, as I've been introduced there, you know, these things take people to take a bit of a chance. And there's all of you lovely people here. There's all of you lovely people that are watching this at home. And I want to say a big thank you to absolutely every single one of you. The starting point, those of you that don't know me, I'm Dan Kiernan. And I think most of you, if you're here, you've heard the voice, but to give you a little bit of a background, you might hear the accent, the northeastern accent. And that's the start of all of this, because that's where my roots are from. You know, that's where the values are from that I've been taught throughout my life, and that's what we've tried to bring through in the academy in Spain, but also through the podcast. And I was that tennis player who started out, ended up going off to the National Tennis Centre at the time, age 14. I went through that. I then went to college tennis out in America. You know, I feel I've had a lot of experience at the different levels that people have also played. And then I was fortunate enough to be one of those British players that gets these wildcard things into Wimbledon, which took me there to play there a couple of times, managed to get my name at the top of a list ahead of Tim Henman. I played, I think, 28 tournaments that year, and he played 2. But it did say British number 1 was Dan Kiernan and British number 2 was Tim Henman. And I have cut that out, and that sticks with me and will always stick with me. But I was kind of that typical morning tennis player, you know, complaining, you know, always looking to blame things. And I often ask myself the question, was I successful as a tennis player? And I think at the time I probably felt I wasn't, you know, because I think that is what the sport sometimes brings into us. And then when I stopped playing back in 2005, I probably had 2 or 3 years where I didn't quite know what I stood for, you know, and I think we all leave professional sport and we don't know quite how to fill it. And I then woke up one day and I thought, you know what, this mindset needs to change. And that was when Control the Controllables became that thing in my mind, because the number one controllable that we have is ourselves. And it then became about, okay, how do I become better every day? How do I get stuck into what I do and control my own destiny on a day-to-day basis? And without really knowing it, and I guess they call it compound habits, these fancy books, you know, I didn't come up with that, but without knowing it, all of a sudden things started to happen in my life. You know, we moved over to Spain, we set up the Soto Tennis Academy 14 years ago now, which has been a huge success for me and my family, the life that it's given us. I've then been lucky to work with a lot of amazing individuals who have gone on and achieved brilliant things on the tennis court. That all came to a head one, I don't know if it was sunny, but it was a crazy weekend in New York back in September, where 3 players that I worked with won Grand Slams. You know, won the mixed doubles championship and won the women's doubles championship at arguably the biggest, or one of the biggest tournaments in the world. And it certainly made me learn along that journey that just doing that every single day, all of us, even a lad from the northeast of England, has a chance. So then what about Control the Controllables that you hear hopefully on your podcast platforms? Where did that begin? Well, that was where the name came from. The passion was the tennis and the journeys, the ups and the downs, and trying to understand a little bit more about that. And then we all had our own experiences, didn't we, during the pandemic? You know, could we leave the house? What could we do? What does it mean to business? What happens? You know, now I am the lesser journalist and broadcaster in my family. You know, my wife is a professional. She's very good at what she does. I just decided to set up an app and give this podcast thing a go. But my biggest challenge was, how do I keep it away from my wife? Because the second she gets her hands on it, it's going to take a lot longer for me to get an episode out, because she's going to do it properly. So this is me holding my hands up and apologizing to all of you for the naff quality of the first 80 podcasts that went out. And then we made a decision, okay, let's do this properly. And ever since, she's been the star of the show. She's made me sound somewhat better. and certainly made our guests sound a lot better as well. And then here we are now, in front of all of you here online, doing our first live show. And who knows where this takes us? You know, this might be another little adventure that we go on. The long and short of it is, tennis is fragmented, whichever way you want to look at it. We have 7 governing bodies. Okay, we've got the ATP, looks after men's tennis. The WTA looks after women's professional tennis. The ITF that looks after a lot of different aspects of tennis. We then have, I call them the big dogs, because they have the commercial value. You go to US Open on a weekend, you pay $250 for a ground pass, and it's absolutely packed. They are the ones that are really pushing tennis forward from a commercial standpoint, and that is the Grand Slams, Wimbledon, US Open, French Open, Australian Open. Well, they're a little bit peeved, a bit dissatisfied with what's going on in the world of tennis, because they actually don't hold all of the cards. They don't have the power. And this came to a head. Whatever your political stances are, that's not what tonight's about. But in 2022, the Russians and the Belarusians were not allowed to play Wimbledon. The ATP and WTA turned around and said, well, screw you guys, you're not getting any of our points. Points make prizes. Points is the big thing that tennis players love. They love money, but they got a lot of money at that end already. So points is something. And that annoyed them. So what's happened over the last couple of years is the Grand Slams have been trying to align themselves to say, right, well, how are we going to gain a little bit of traction here and take a little bit of power back? We haven't heard too much of it out in the press, but I can assure you it's happening. The meetings are happening. They're trying to come together, and they are trying to create a tour that is going to only have 96 singles players. That is what they're looking at. Is it good? Is it bad? We'll discuss that tonight. You know, let's not judge that straight away. What happens to doubles? We don't know, but we will see. Now, as any relationship, when someone gets a bit pushed off, they retaliate. So the ATP and WTA, when everyone was down in Australia having these meetings, they said, we're going to go to Saudi Arabia. Bit of money in Saudi. Saudi are getting involved in every single sport. And they've come back and said that they have a multi-billion-dollar deal on the table to go into partnership with the PIF. That's where it currently stands. We don't quite know which way it's going to go, but what we do know is disruption is happening in our sport. Disruption is happening from the top, whether it's happening via the Saudi route, whether it's happening through the Grand Slam route, it is absolutely happening. So we've got some amazing people to hopefully unpack that a little bit for you tonight. But I want to now take the time to introduce our panelists. Before I do that, you will notice there will be 4 males on the stage. It's not what we wanted. We have tried extremely hard to make sure we've got a balanced panelists. And Gabby Dabrowski, who I coach, the world number 4 doubles player, unfortunately he's gone down with an injury and couldn't travel. We only found out a few hours ago. So we send our love out to Gabby. Hope she is getting better soon. And I've then been turned down by more women in the last 24 hours than I have in my younger years of traveling the world on tour. Well before I met my wife, I may add. And that is true. You can look at my phone. They all let me down very easily and said they would love to do it, however. And I had flashbacks to all of those conversations that I had all of those years ago. So I do apologise for that, but I work on the WTA Tour. John Morris, who will be coming out soon, is an agent to many of the WTA Tour players as well. I think we are qualified to stand that representation of the WTA Tour. I'm not saying we are for the female representation, but I do just want to make you guys aware of that because we are certainly aware of it. First guest. They're all going to come out together, but I'm going to introduce you. First one, tennis super agent. Nick Kyrgios a few years ago, Emma Raducanu, and now the agent of Andrey Rublev, Alina Svitolina, Mr. John Morris. Give him a big round of applause before he will come in together as a team. Our second is 2012 Wimbledon doubles champion. Best story ever, and hopefully we will get to it later. A very good friend of mine, Danish Davis Cup captain, is looking after Holger Rune, and that is Freddie Nielsen. And our knight in shining armour. He wasn't on the panel, not because we didn't want him on the panel, because he's awesome, but he has moved heaven and earth to be here tonight, because Calvin Betton, his players have moved on to the semi-finals out in Bucharest, so a big well done to those guys. Now, Justin was one of our latest episodes, one of our most listened to episodes, one of the episodes we've received the best feedback. He is an absolute legend. You're going to love him. He brought Jack Draper all the way through from a young age. He is the current coach still and has been for many years to Joe Salisbury and also Joe Conter. He has a wealth of knowledge. He's going to be brilliant. And that is Justin Sherring. Give them all a big round of applause as they come on to the stage. Guys, welcome. I think to get started, actually, you've heard me talking there. We've had lots of discussions about this new tour, about this disruption. Why now?
It's an interesting one. I think with what happened with the ranking points being taken off Wimbledon a few years back, I think that was what started the snowball forming and started to roll. And then there's discussions now around the Saudis coming in and taking potentially a Masters 1000 event in week one, which again is going to shatter the Australian summer of tennis and really hinder the product there in Australia, which is the lead into the Australian Open. So 2 slams really were sort of hurt or harmed, if you like, with decisions by the ATP Tour that they didn't consult the slams on, really. And when you look at it, the slams are generating probably 70 to 80% of the tennis economical pie, and they have such a small say. So you could say it's a power grab, and there is really no intention to go with the Premier Tour, or they are really looking to break away and do their own thing and make sure that they're running their own show.
So Premier Tour is what? An elite tour is what, John? Let's get that terminology right, because that's something I think I'm a little bit unsure
so
of.
if something was to happen, it would be the Premier Tour.
Yeah.
The number of events that potentially would be created are anywhere between 10 and 16 is what I've heard, plus then the 4 slams and Davis Cup. And they would all primarily be 1,000 events.
And is this, I think the thing that comes into my head on this, I don't know if any of you have got the answer, is this the players pushing? Because what we know, and if we take the NBA as an example, we know that the NBA, 50% of the revenue created goes back to the players. Whereas tennis is a sport, we're talking more about 18%. So it feels to me almost, if this wasn't the players, it was a matter of time before the players are going to start creating a bit of a union and kicking up a bit of a stink and saying, hold on a minute, this piece of the pie here, this isn't going to us. So is this player-led? Is this led from the governing bodies? Where's this coming from?
No, it's definitely more governing body-led, slam-led, I would say, from what I understand. Ultimately, with the vision is that the players will have to commit to play less, or would play less commitments, but more money. So who wouldn't sign up for that, right? Less work, more money.
But also, I mean, I've been a player somewhat, and players have been trying to do something for years, and with very little effect, I mean, in the big picture. So I don't really think that the players have had that much influence. They've had a little bit. You even saw the introduction of the PTPA, which hasn't really done that much yet. So I think it's fair to say that it's not the players.
And what's your take on it?
Well, I think also from a marketing point of view, the big players that have carried the sport for a long time, Roger's already done, Rafa's on his last legs, and Novak is obviously not going to stick around forever. There's going to be a gap when they're done, I think. So I think that's also a natural time to do it. However, I'm a little bit skeptical as to the reason for the change. There's a lot of pros and cons for it, but I'm a traditionalist. I'm not particularly fond of change as such, but I'm also very aware of the fact that tennis throughout time has changed a lot, and it always will, and it's a good thing to change. So I'm trying to keep an open mind about it, because we know, I mean, back in the days, if you won Wimbledon, you were in the final the next year, and there's been the introduction of the tiebreak and these kind of things. So change can be good, but I'm fearing we're at a time where it's maybe not for the right reasons.
Freddie's grandfather won Wimbledon, by the way, guys.
He did not. He was in the final.
The final?
Yes.
Yeah, Freddie.
There's only
won
one
Wimbledon.
in this family who won Wimbledon.
So when we're talking about tradition of the game...
Unless he actually did win the junior event. If you claim that one,
okay.
He was the first ever in the history of the game to win Junior Wimbledon. But we don't value that in the house.
Sounding a little competitive there. There's only one Nielsen. Listen, I've got a slightly different take on it as well, because I'm sort of, most of my history in our sport is through coaching juniors, and you know, I guess doing quite a nice job and building relationships. It means that you get to coach someone like a Jack or a Joe for a long time, since they were like 5 or 6 years old. So having almost put a racket in their hands for the first time, how emotional do I feel? How attached do I feel about the sport that you introduced them to? I couldn't care less, as long as they make lots of money, as long as they're thoroughly successful, and as long as they have enough rest time to prepare properly. I'm now on the tour with that same guy, Joe Salisbury. I mean, first of all, how cool is that? That's so cool as a coach. If you're listening, guys, keep going. You know, if you've got a good kid and you really believe in them, then you have to. It's just wonderful to sit there. Wimbledon final, 5-time Grand Slam champion, #1 in the world. I mean, sitting with his mum, working out who's going to open up the champagne bottle when he becomes #1. We've got to experience it if you're a coach out there. But really, I think that someone like Joe with the doubles, I think they get treated pretty poorly in terms of the whole scene. I mean, listen, you're lucky to be there in the first place. And I talked to Rajiv Ram, Joe's partner, and he says, look, we're hanging on the coattails of the singles guys. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be making an awful lot of money. And that just seems sad. We've got a wonderful, wonderful sport, like doubles, for example. So if our sport, like doubles, can piggyback on this rethinking, these changes, I'll be all for it. Other sports I watch a lot, and I've noticed changes in them. Of course, golf has changed a lot. So I think that's also kicked maybe some of the tennis brains into thinking, look, Liv have done it. Let's wait and see how they do. They've done all right. They got kicked out of the Ryder Cup. They're kind of thinking about coming back again. They can all still play the Masters. That's not too bad either. So what are?
But Liv's not been successful from many standpoints, other than making a hell of a lot of money for certain players. But if you look at Liv in the respect, I don't believe it has a TV deal. I've been to a Liv golf event. It was like watching paint dry. Nobody really knows what's going on. There's not really any emotion attached. So I think we need to be careful following that format.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think, another sport that I follow closely is boxing. Boxing, matchroom boxing with the Hearn, Eddie Hearn has taken a lot of fights over to Saudi Arabia, and the atmosphere is really, really different. It's really quiet. But money talks, guys, and it's going to talk in this instance as well. And I think where there's a great big deal, playing a little bit less, looking after your bodies, having a bit more of a life perhaps away from the tour, outside of the tour, I think you're going to get a lot of holistically minded athletes thinking, that's not a bad job. And be sure when they go out there, they put on a good show. I'm pretty sure Bryson's putting on a good show when he goes out. I'm pretty sure Anthony Joshua is looking to knock someone out still, even if he's not fighting in front of a passionate crowd. I think we just have to sort of embrace it, and if we get the opportunity to move it in a certain direction where we keep the passion, keep the tradition, maybe tennis can learn a little bit from that sterile environment that's been created in golf, and still keep a little bit of it.
But I think you hit the nail on the head there with keeping the traditions, because what I fear about this is that we're heading more and more towards scripted events. Like boxing is more entertainment than tennis is, whereas I think tennis is more of an open sport, and I fear we're going to lose that unpredictability because I think John can speak more to this, that the tournaments, they want to see the best guys as long as possible in the tournament. It's not in their interest that there's an upset, that Jannik Sinner loses first round. That's horrible for the tournament. So I think that the ones that make the decisions, they want to, it's in their interest that it becomes more close, that we see the same good guys all the time, that it's a little bit more scripted and predictable so we can have the same rivalries. And that's what I'm a little bit worried about, that we're heading towards entertainment and scripted, and what the same way with the Super League in football, that if it's the same teams that are playing each other, then the drama gets artificially created, and I'm not a big fan of that.
I actually think from an entertainment perspective, we need more of that without losing the tradition. But people buy a ticket to go and watch tennis to be entertained. It is a show. And I think if you look at all the sports that have overtaken tennis in recent years, the entertainment element and the show element is far greater. I mean, if you look at UFC, I mean, I don't want to watch two guys bash the crap out of each other in a cage. There's lots of people that do.
I actually really enjoy that. And I used it a lot in my coaching.
That's coming later, guys. You just put the ballot in. Which two do you want to see go at each other? I'm not included.
I know, we're good. No, you make a good point.
But it's the marketing dollars that's gone behind it. I mean, if you look at, we've had the big four. Outside of that, for the last 15, 20 years, the marketing on the tour has been crap. You look at Thomas Berdych, great-looking guy, super marketable, played unbelievable tennis, exciting tennis, was top 10 for 10 years, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but wouldn't sell out a phone box because he was completely unmarketed by the tour. They just focused on four guys. I think they've now learned from that, and you see the creation of Tennis TV and what they're putting out now, but we've just got to do better at the marketing side of things to attract. Because, I mean, Patrick Mouratoglou did some studies recently to track the average age. And it's aged in 10 years, from 10 years ago. It's the same people.
Players or people that are watching?
No, people are watching, the people that consume tennis. So we're not attracting new fans.
And this is the most bizarre thing, because if we take that demographic, most of that demographic, if they're playing tennis down at the club, what are they playing?
Yep.
They're playing doubles.
Yep.
And
we're going to get on to doubles later. You doubles coach over there.
Well,
we're going to get on to that. I'm going to cut
I
him
am,
out
but I
now
watched the
because
match today. I watched in Munich today. I watched Jack play, Taylor Fritz, and everybody is sitting in the stands, absolutely frozen. I'm thinking, that doesn't look like an awful lot of fun there. Doesn't look like an awful. I hope that they came for something else other than watching poor Jack lose another blooming tiebreak in 3 sets. But they all look, and I thought, God, I'm so glad I'm sitting at home, haven't bought a ticket, and I haven't been entertained by the weather. I'm at the mercy of that, and that's it's a pretty big tournament. You've got a big guy like Fritzy over, and the guys are getting ready for the French. But still, it doesn't look that much fun.
Is that not the way of the world? Even if we take what's happening tonight, you guys are massively valued, but you as the audience are creating the atmosphere. So come on, let's hear a little bit more. But it's the hundreds. I'm not sure if it's James 100,000s. I don't know how many thousands are online, but this is about the online streaming. Ultimately, that's where a lot of events have gone. So when we talk about the way that sport is being, or content is being consumed, the consumption of sport, people do tend to quite like it in their own homes for some of those reasons. Whereas that's where the TV deals and so many of those things come in. But Justin, I want to, because we will get to doubles, but I want to take you back to Saudi, because you've touched on it, and I think there's probably some people that gasped, as you said, go where the money is, and because it's such an emotive topic. Now, whether we like it or not, we've okayed ourselves as a sport with Saudi Arabia. We almost can't say individually we might not have, but as a sport we have. The WTA Finals has just done a 3-year deal. There's talk about having a Masters 1000 event. I was recently at Miami Open. PIF is everywhere. It's not quite as subtle as it was. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of okayed ourselves with it. Now, two of the absolute legends of the game, Martina Navratilova and Chrissy Evert, have stood up for it, against it. Dasha Kazakina, John, the player that you manage, has stood up against it, but very few people have. So what is the players' take on this? Because almost those legends just got, yeah, okay, Martina, okay, Chrissy, get back in your box, we're off to make some money.
Well, no, I think, and that's a point that I couldn't believe. I thought, wow, Martina and Chrissy Evert, they've spoken out, legends of the game, and unfortunately, and I don't want you to think that I've sold my soul, everybody, but we just have to. I'm absolute realist. If a player's forehand isn't working, use your backhand. if you're not serving great, just get it in, just get the point started. So we kind of are where we are. And so my mindset is to embrace what's already going on. It's already happening. So we either sort of sit back and realize that, oh, this is all going on, but I can't really do much about it, so I won't really say much. Or we just say, look, I really want to be involved in this conversation. I really want to get stuck in. I mean, the European Super League and football is going to come up again. It's going to come up. It's not going anywhere. I don't think it's going anywhere. It might have been pushed away. But this is just where we're all going. But when Martina and Chrissy get told to get back in your box, and they're very smart in the fact that they put a female spokesperson up as well to say that, I mean, wow, that's how little they respect the history and tradition of our sport. But another aspect which you need to understand as well is that the players are getting respected. They're not just getting paid, they're getting respected. Their time is getting respected. They get picked up, they get looked after. That's what I'm hearing on the sort of live tour. They like that. They're not being just carted around from tournament to tournament, treated like pawns, in a game. And if Roger can't do anything, Novak can't do anything, Rafa can't do anything last few years, well, that means no one's going to do anything. No one's going to be bigger than any of us. No one's going to be bigger than tennis.
No, and players are in it for their careers. I mean, they're not political people. They're there to do what's better for them and their family. And I mean, if most people are going to go to Saudi Arabia, that one person is going to be left out. So it's also expecting a lot of the players to do this. And I mean, if something needs to be done, it's the decision makers, right?
Well, that's the problem, I think, for me. And I've had conversations with the WTA, not just on the human rights element. So Dasha is openly gay. It's illegal there. I had these concerns. Is she going to be safe? The other and to be fair to the WTA, they've assured that. And
so what assurances can the WTA make?
They've had those conversations with the powers that be around same-sex relations, and actually even unmarried couples, players and partners sharing rooms and things like this. So they've had assurances around all that they'll be okay.
On that, John, just if I cut you off very quickly and then you get back to that point. Last year, the WTA Finals, people would have heard WTA Finals was played in Cancun. Now, all that was on the table was Saudi Arabia, Czech Republic, and Cancun. They were the only people that put the money up to be able to pay for those events. Now, Saudi, they weren't ready. They hadn't quite readied themselves for that. Czech Republic, they got assurances early in the year that Russians and Belarusians would be able to get into the country, and then Sabalenka and a couple of Russians, I believe, weren't allowed into the country when push came to shove. So they weren't able to go to Czech Republic because Sabalenka might be playing in the finals, there might be some other Russians. So they were given that assurance and it didn't come through. So does that, as the agent of Dasha Kazatkina, who was having a good year, who could potentially be in the WTA Finals come December, come November, does her team have concerns?
Yeah, we've raised them. We've put those to the tour, had those assurances. I mean, it's difficult to say we can't go to Saudi because of X, Y, and Z when, I mean, they are trying to be more progressive in what they're doing. And also, as well as you were sort of alluding to, do you want to be left at the station? They're investing in tennis. They want tennis. They're going to have it. So it's how we give it to them. My issue is they've never had tennis in the past. And again, I've raised this with the WTA. My issue was, why give them the jewel in the crown of the WTA? So most people don't realise the tours don't own events. They have one or two events. So the ATP, the only events the ATP own are the finals.
Who owns the events?
Individual promoters, individual businessmen. If you've got the money or you've got a business that you want to buy a license and host an event, as long as there's one available, or you're prepared to lease one from an existing owner, anybody, if you put the money up, can have your own event. So the only events the tours own are the finals. So really it's the jewel in the crown of the WTA. We can talk about the slams in a minute around what they are, and everyone knows what they are. But from a WTA perspective, the biggest event they have is the finals, and they've gone straight ahead and given it to the Saudis. For me, I think the optics are or potentially look like a cash grab. It should have been a 250 or a series of 250s and a 500 building to that. However, again, I've spoken to Steve Simon and there's assurances around growing the game, and there's some KPIs in there that they've got to hit around getting girls playing, getting them active, exposing them to the sport. So, I mean, doing all those things around young girls and growing the game, that's a big yes for me, and sort of soften the blow, if you will. Because ultimately, as we were just saying about new fans, we need to attract new fans. Yeah. And how amazing would it be in 20 years' time if we've got a girl on the tour from Saudi because she's seen the finals this year? Yeah. So, and I know Serena and others have talked about having black role models and sort of you've got to see it to be it and all that sort of stuff. So from that side of things, I think taking it there is a positive, yeah. But I understand the drawbacks, and I've had some of my own concerns as well.
But the previous finals, when it was really something, was in China. Yeah. And that was arguably also a cash grab, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, so Cancun was too.
Yeah, so
it's
always been there. Yeah, exactly.
Most things are. That's why I'm stood here. It's for the money, the big money that I'm being paid to be here.
Go back a year.
This is a big topic. We could talk about this topic all night. My producer has given me the nod to move on, but that is a big topic. My only point I make on that, and maybe it's the one we pick up later, is that the spin. The cynic in me goes, the spin is that we're going to affect change in that part of the world. I believe it when I see it. But
I agree.
Can I just say that in my simple mind, really simple, the more people that are there, the more people can see, the more exposed everything is, then the more chance there is of change, and the less chance there is of things happening away in dark places. So that's...
You can say it, but I have to move, and I'm going to bring it to Freddie, and ultimately this comes to the question that we've posed, and we've posed it a lot on social media: is this the start or the end of tennis? Now, my concern is I love tennis, I really do, and the older I get, the more I love tennis. And I love the entrepreneurial way of tennis. I've been a Newcastle fan. It's the hope. The hope is what gets you. We're not going to win anything. Not a chance we're ever going to win anything. But there's hope in this passion. And I see tennis a bit like that. It's a sport that you have hope in, because there's many different ways. We saw Marcus Willis. Marcus Willis was more overweight than I am. He was a tennis coach, and he went through pre-qualifying, he went through qualifying, he beat Andrey Rublev, Daniil Medvedev, he won his first round, and then he played Roger Federer on centre court. Unbelievable story. Emma Raducanu went through qualifying, came through the qualifying, then was probably the most watched tennis match of all time. Nobody cared about the men. Those kind of women's tennis haters weren't complaining that day. So we've got that story. We've got this young man here next to me. It's those stories that I'm concerned that we are getting rid of. We're losing that entrepreneurial and that hope way. So, Freddie Nielsen, is this the start? Is this the opportunity? Or is this the threat? Is this the end of what we know as tennis?
I think a bit of both. I mean, something's going to happen. So it is going to be the end of something, but it could be the start of something new. And unfortunately, where we are now in the world, I think the world of tennis is going to survive without those underdog stories. I think if we were without those underdog stories, the tennis world wouldn't change as much. But if we're without Novak, Sinner, Holger, these guys, that would have a big effect. So the more we can have them in, unfortunately, then it's better for tennis, but better for the casual fan who likes to watch, because basically what you watch is the what or the why, right? It's either you watch Wimbledon because that's the what. No matter who plays at Wimbledon, people will watch it. No matter what you play for, like we saw without the points, people will watch it, or they watch the why. They came to watch Carlos, Novak, Sinner, Roger back in the days, whatever. That's what they want to watch, right? And they're really going to get this, and they might even have a better product of it, because one of my pet peeves in sport is that you get too much stuff down your throat, that I lose interest. There's too much sport all the time. And here you get a little lighter schedule. You can have people that prepare better, more fit, can compete against each other and play at a higher level. But at what cost? That's great for the top. But the problem can be, how is the feeding system going to be coming through? What's it going to be like for I mean, we don't know how many people are going to be allowed into this Premier Tour, but let's just, for the sake of argument, say 100. What's going to happen from 100 to 1,000? What are we going to do to motivate our players? You say motivation for the players are going to be good because they can reach this level, but are we going to lose more players because it's going to be so difficult to get through? I worry a little bit about it because I'm a bit of a cynic. I don't believe that anything is done for the greater good of a sport. That's also why I'm not a great guy for these kind of things, because I'm happy to let tennis be the way it is, and then have less people watch it and make less money. I mean, I'm a bit of an outlier that way, but I like it like that.
You are, yeah.
And so I'm probably not the best to talk about it. That's also why I'm saying I'm very well aware of this, and I have to keep my mind open. But at the same time, and I know Cal makes this point a lot, that it is a meritocracy, and if we're going to make this a close group, and we shut that illusion of having to go through, it's going to change the fabric of sports. And you know, the sport that we have now is something that brings excitement, and it's you know, when you watch sport, you can clench your fists and you can raise your arms and you can scream because you get excited with it, because you get carried away that you think it's life or death, right? When you watch Newcastle, you think it's life or death, but in actual fact, it
normally
means
death.
Yeah, exactly. But it means nothing, right? It makes zero difference, and if we're being totally honest. So you need that illusion. If they take that illusion away and make it closed, I think it's, for me, a shame, and I think you're going to lose a lot of authentic fans. Are you going to get a lot of new fans? Maybe people will pay a bigger premium, but I think it's definitely the end, but maybe the start of something good. For John, or start of more money anyway.
John, you've been privy to a lot of conversations.
Yeah, look, I think there has to be trickle-down economics, and I think there will be. I think you were right. I think the plan is around 100 players. I actually think it should be less. I think it should be 60, because then if it is 100, you almost kill the 250s and the 500s. There is a discussion around having a guarantee fee per year for the players on the tour. So basically, if you finish with whatever that ranking bracket will be, you'll retain your place on the Premier Tour for the following year. Then the plan is to have a regional tour, and if you move up, you stay on for a whole year. But then as you come off the Premier Tour, you choose your region. So in that, travel's reduced, which, okay, there's a financial element, but it's the strain on the body as well. It's the travelling and having to play, and next day and this sort of stuff will be removed. It then enables the marketing to create stars of the region, which, I mean, if you're able to do that from a marketing perspective, it's only going to be better for the top, the whole sport, as a whole. And then from a top end, the players will come together at slams. There's talk around, remember back in the day with the satellites, you would have points around a little circuit and you'd play up. There's talk of doing something similar. So there's lots of ideas around at the moment. Nothing's really set in stone. And really, from my perspective, I think this is potentially a better model than what we currently have. But as I said to you, Dan, it doesn't have my unwavering support. If the ATP or ATP WTA or ATP and the Slams get together and come up with something themselves that is better than this, again, let's look at that. But I just think with where we currently are, we run the risk of dying a slow death on the tour. I mean, I think the numbers and the revenue and the eyeballs on the Slams is always increasing. It's always going up. I don't think that's the case for the tours. So we would be a bit stupid to not try and do more with those events that are achieving that level of success 4 times a year.
So I would agree with that, but my thing is, so if I share a conversation I had with, I won't go into names, but it's one of the top players in the world and their team. And they said to me, came up very, very excited. It was a team member, very excited from the meetings that they'd had. And he's basically, this player's been told he's probably going to make 10 times the money they're already making. Oh, okay, brilliant. You know, that's awesome. And what that means is it's amazing for the ecosystem of tennis. Okay, now when I think of the ecosystem of tennis, I think about the coach that's at the schools. I think about my local club, Shotley and Bedfield side, club that is trying to survive on, people eating sponge cake on a night, playing cricket on the courts, and I think the ecosystem comes from all that way. And what this person said was, it means the physio who charges 4,000 a week can now charge 8,000 a week. But it was every comment I've heard, apart from you, has been somebody who's talking about this very, very, very thin layer of our sport. So what conversations are happening? And I'm going to bring you in here, Justin, because you're head of performance tennis for Surrey County. So one of your roles is very much about what is happening. How does this aspire coaches, players, parents to get involved in the sport from a very young age? If we're talking about just a thinner slice,
it depends how you market. It depends how you market 100 players. If you market 100 players and you get to know 100 players, it's better than it is right now. All we know is, unless you're hardcore fans like you guys, all anybody cares about is the top 3 or 4 players. I can imagine, I'm just being cynical at a tournament recently. I said, do you realise that if you actually said, oh yeah, you can come and stick some money into our tournament, and you got Andrey Rublev, and the businessman in the office goes, we want Novak. And you got Andrey Rublev, he's really, really good. We can probably get you Medvedev. No, we want Rafa. And that's all. And that for me, our sport has done so little to promote the depth, the wealth, these stories that Freddie alluded to. There are stories left, right, and centre. Let me tell you, if you come through as a pro player, you got a story. You got a story, even if you've had all the money from the LTA, even if you've had no money from some of these other Eastern European countries. I've been all around the world, watched coaching. You've got a story. You're out there at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're the first one on the court, the last one to leave. You're the kid that was the little podgy guy. I think his name was Nick Kyrgios, that didn't look too athletic at his age. He's got a story. I don't know a player that's made it doesn't have a story. But you guys don't know about any of that. Don't know any about that. Because the current situation is so elite, I'm not sure you can make it any more elite. I'm not sure you can make it any more hidden away. Let's open it up. 100 players, bosh. Let's smash them all. Let's have those little top trump cards. Every 100 players, bosh, there you go. Let's get them out. Because that doesn't currently exist. Do we have top trumps for tennis players?
Actually, I've just done a deal with...
Have you, John?
Fanatics,
I had
they're
no
coming
idea.
out. They're coming
I
out.
had no idea.
They're
goes
coming
to get
out.
his
You knew, right? You knew that.
We get a percentage now. You've mentioned it on Controllables.
All I want is a pack. I want a pack.
Again, it's an emotive topic.
Thanks for that,
It is something. I think we can all agree. There's a chance for a reset. Whether it's the start, it's the end. There's a lot of areas of the sport. We've talked about it a lot. It's probably not for tonight. We've got plenty more podcasts we can talk about it for, but it is a chance to reset in many different ways, without us losing what we actually have and what we all love about the sport. Now, we've got someone who loves doubles here, someone who's a Grand Slam champion in doubles here, someone coached multiple Grand Slam champions over there. I've seen you play. You're better at doubles as well. So there's definitely a doubles theme here, and that's actually, I do think that's actually part of it as well. That in our sport, because singles is put up as almost more valued, and the players are more valued, there is probably a little bit more entitlement in the singles world, so it's harder to get singles people to come and talk. So it moves to doubles. There is talk that doubles could be leaving the sport. If we go back even 20 years, I believe it was the Bryan brothers. Not many people know this, but they put up $300,000 of their own money to win a court suit, against the ATP to stop doubles being taken off the table. We're now very much in a position, and the way I describe doubles, Freddie, is the mistress of tennis. They kind of want to have them, but they're not allowed to come out to play very often. They've got to be there, and every now and then they're allowed to come up and they're used. So is doubles going to be a part of the future, or are they, and Justin said it earlier, either love us or leave us?
Well, I think it's a tough one, because I don't think that any of the decision makers except players, doubles players, are really that interested in having doubles, because I don't think what it does to some tournaments, it adds matches at the end of the tournament when there's nothing else. That's basically what doubles has as an effect for them. But otherwise, it's just extra expenses, extra prize money, and it doesn't really does a whole lot of things for them. So I don't really think there's many big decision makers that are that interested in making the push. The chance double has is if they somehow come up with a system where you can entice the big guys to play some more at tournaments that matter, because doubles there's nothing wrong with the product itself. You can see that it just depends on, again, the what and why. So people will watch the Wimbledon because it is Wimbledon. They'll watch whatever it is because it's Wimbledon. They'll watch the doubles if it's the why. They'll watch mixed doubles when Andy plays with Serena, when Novak plays. So it's not the problem with the doubles. They got to sort out how you can get people to watch it more. And I think it's difficult the way it is right now because people don't really know it. And basically, roughly speaking, and I've had more success in doubles, so it's like I'm included. Doubles is for the ones who don't make it in singles. I mean, there's not one single doubles player out there.
You said that a lot nicer than Dan Evans said it.
But I mean, it's just a matter of fact. Give me one doubles guy who
failures.
said yeah, but let me give me
but why?
one.
But why?
But give me one doubles guy who wants to if they could pick a choice between successful singles and successful doubles, it's singles.
Well, there's more money in singles, and there's more
and prestige and everything.
But if you take other sports, if you take cricket, there's not necessarily more prestige in being a test match player than there is about being a one-day player or a 2020 player. The money, I believe, is quite equal. They get the same amount
cricket,
of people.
Great sport in Denmark.
Yeah, but in terms of a marketing strategy, so that comes down to marketing for me. Yeah. You know, this week Tennis TV, I've only seen one doubles thing out there, and it said the dream team, and it was Holger Rune and it was Taylor Fritz playing doubles. You know,
exactly, and that's the what and the why, right?
Yeah.
And so if they can make some system where you get the best guys to play, or make a full run at doubles and totally promote the doubles guys, then you might have a chance. But as it is now, the doubles guys are not particularly interested in making it marketable because they change partners all the time and make it difficult to
and
play with each other.
How fun would that be? Better than Breakpoint on Netflix. Imagine if that whole thing was dedicated towards doubles.
We always say that on doubles
right?
too. There should be a fly-on-the-wall documentary about doubles. And it will be, this guy committed to me, and now he's with this guy, and look what he told me. Oh, I can't believe he signed. He dumped me. He thinks that guy. It's unbelievable.
I think we came up with a name for it. We called it 15 Love Island.
It's so entertaining.
It is. It's Love Island on drugs.
That would be even better. That would be better.
That would have been fun.
We could talk for hours, and as you can probably tell, us four certainly can, and we often do actually at tournaments, and that's one of the beautiful things about the sport as well. I can't tell you how thankful I was to the incredible panellists. You know, like Freddie Nielsen flew over, and he didn't even get a hotel, bless him. I mean, he's a Wimbledon champion. He's an incredible guy, a good friend of mine. He flew in early that morning. He then ended up staying up all night, getting the early morning flight back the next day. A massive effort by him to come in and be a part of that. And then John Morris, you know, a very busy guy, looking after some of the best tennis players in the world. And for him to find the time to do that and offer his invaluable insight was incredible. And then last but not least, Justin Sherring. If only you guys knew how many people in the tennis world, you know, we contacted and we were trying to get things going once we knew that, unfortunately, Gabby Dabrowski was supposed to be with us and she wasn't travelling because she was injured. And then Calvin Betton has gone on, I guess, with Henry Patton and Harry Heliavara ever since. They haven't stopped winning. But that was, I think, the first event they played together and they made the final, and Calvin couldn't make it as well. So Justin kind of stepped in at the last minute, and obviously we would have Justin anyway, right? But you can't have everyone on these things. But a big thanks to him as well. And yeah, I'd love to know what you think. You know, is it still a relevant conversation? Like I said at the start, I don't know. I believe so. We live in a world that's evolving all the time. Often we don't appreciate change until it happens, right? Or we think it's not going to happen. And then before you know it, we can't imagine life without it. You know, and that happens in various parts of our life. So why wouldn't that happen in the tennis industry as well? I know there's lots of good things. The Grand Slams certainly seem in a good place. The tennis tournaments I'm going to, and I've been very fortunate to be at some of the biggest tennis tournaments in the world this year. It seems in a great place. It seems to be a well-spectated sport. Is it on TV? I don't know. I don't know the viewing figures. I would imagine it doesn't compete with some of the best sports. Are we filtering that down into, it's 2024 now. It's a long time since I started playing professional tennis. The lower levels, the money still remains the same. I think we all feel that there should be more spaces in the world, in our industry, for tennis players to be at least making a living. And will changes help with that? Will they not? Will the rich get richer? Will the poor get poorer? All of these things are still undecided. All these things we don't quite know. I do believe we have a great product. I love it. I feel very lucky to be working in this incredible sport, despite its frustrations at times. And, I'd like to see us continue evolving, getting better, moving forward. Let's see what the powers that be have got to say about that. First of all, we've got to finish this year. We've got the end of this year. We've got still, on the ATP side, we've still got a couple of 500 events this week, and then moving into Paris Masters, which always is a big event to finish before we obviously go to Turin for the ATP Tour Finals, and then WTA Tour. We're in Japan this week, in Tokyo for the 500, before the top 8 women's singles players and the top 16 doubles players, top 8 pairs, move to Saudi for the year end. And then how could we forget the Billie Jean King Cup and also the Davis Cup? And I can't forget, because that's coming to town. We're so lucky it's coming to Malaga, 1 hour away from the Soto Tennis Academy, and we've got our Rafael Nadal tickets, and that's going to be an emotional evening, but incredible atmosphere that we can't wait. And then we've got our own Gabby Dabrowski from the academy, Gabby, who I've been coaching the last year and a half, with Leila Fernandez and the team who won the Billie Jean King Cup last year. So we'll be there cheering them on as well, and you Brits if you don't play Canada. So lots and lots to still look forward to. As ever on Control the Controllables, we're going to keep trying to look for new ways of bringing content to you. We do have another fantastic one, Asian Swing panel, where I said I'm only having panelists of people that have been and spent time at the Asian Swing over the last few weeks. So that's coming to you in the next couple of days. Then we've got more great guests coming your way. But thank you for listening to this one. Please send me your feedback. If you are interested in more live shows, let us know. We get a big interest, then we can make this happen. We don't want to make money out of this, but, we need to probably make enough money to make it happen, right? Just to put us on an aeroplane, to book out a venue. So if there is interest in Control the Controllables coming into a town near you, then please do let us know. Any ideas, as ever, topics, guests, how do you want us to keep moving this podcast forward? We love bringing it to you. And wherever you are in the world, a big thank you, a big shout out, and hope to see some of you along the line. But until next time, I'm Dan Kiernan, and we are Control the Controllables.